Welcome back to Rising. Lindsay, what is in your lens today?
Let's get right to it. So history isn't supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be honest. But right now we're watching a dangerous trend, the sanitizing of America's past in order to sell a cleaner, prettier story. But no amount of bleach can wash the blood, scars, and chains out of this country's foundation. The Washington Post recently reported that exhibitions and signs about slavery are being removed from multiple national parks under orders from the Trump administration. Internal emails reviewed by the New York Times also reveal that the Park Service has been told to remove materials deemed, quote, inappropriately disparaging Americans. The translation for that, if it makes white America look bad, it's gotta go. At Fort Pulaski in Georgia, officials have been reportedly asked to pull the scourged back photo. It's a famous 1863 photo of an enslaved man with horrific scars on his back. That Department of Interior told The Hill when they asked that they did not ask for the removal of that photo. And they told The Hill, quote, if any interpretive materials are found to have been removed or altered prematurely in error, the department will review the circumstances and take corrective action as appropriate. At Harper's Ferry, more than 30 signs documenting racism faced by formerly enslaved people are slated for removal as well. The order is being interpreted broadly as anything addressing slavery, racism, sexism, LGBTQ rights, or indigenous persecution is now fair game for erasure. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. Since taking office, Donald Trump has consistently pushed policies and rhetoric that minimize or outright erase the experiences of marginalized communities, from painting over the Black Lives Matter mural in D.C. to temporarily scrubbing stories of Navajo code talkers from federal websites. His administration has treated Black and Indigenous history as disposable. Even on Juneteenth, the very day that commemorates the end of slavery, Trump complained that, quote, too many non-working holidays in America. Let's call it what it is. It's whitewashing, pun very much intended. Government sites have been scrubbed of words like injustice and oppression. School libraries have purged writings from amazing authors like Maya Angelou. Exhibits honoring Harriet Tubman and the Tuskegee Airmen have been sidelined. And critics say this is part of a pattern of words and actions designed to, quote, promote a more positive view of the nation's history. But it really is just erasing the parts that don't fit the fairy tale. Pretending that slavery, racism, and a campaign of mass displacement and extermination of indigenous people didn't shape this country won't bring us any closer to the ideals of freedom, equality, and justice. In fact, it pulls us further away. The past explains the present. If you erase the scars, you erase the story. And without the story, you erase the roadmap to progress. Simply saying things like slavery is bad and trying to end the conversation there seriously underplays the harm caused by an institution that forcibly uprooted millions of Africans and condemned them to lifetimes of bondage. Unless you're siding with the slave owners, it wasn't just bad, it was pure evil. So let's be clear, removing evidence of slavery and indigenous persecution doesn't make America stronger, it makes America dishonest. History is not a brand campaign, and no matter how much you try to rewrite the story, those scars, like the ones etched across the back of Gordon, the enslaved man in that Civil War photo that may or may not be removed, will always remain. Because the truth is this, America only becomes the nation it promises to be when it stops hiding from the past and starts facing it head on.
Well, I agree with you. I don't want to get rid of the vast majority of these things in all likelihood. I think they're being taken down in acts of malicious compliance. Do you know what that is?
No, break that down for me. I like that term.
That is when, well, I don't think you're going to like what I have to say about it, but that is when the administration will say something perfectly reasonable, like you can't have like pornographic books in the school library, and then they'll say, oh, you're saying we can't teach Maya Angelou or something.
So you're blaming local leaders for interpreting it wrong
they
on purpose.
Interpret it wrongly, right? Wrongly on purpose to make the administration look bad. Well, the administration is not saying you can't celebrate the Tuskegee Airmen, you can't celebrate Harriet Tubman. I'll put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill.
That should have happened.
I supported that. I want the gun photo, the one where she's holding a gun and saying, "Come with me to freedom."
Or we could just have a nice smiling faces.
No, I want gun and I want freedom. That's
so look,
beautiful.
I work on a series called World of Travel, where we talk about the past and the future of cities and countries around the world. And so we recently went to Philadelphia and we visited the first quote unquote White House, the president's house, which was George Washington's house. And we spoke with local leadership of the museum and local politicians, and they explained to us that they're getting direct orders from the Department of Interior to review the slave quarters, which is on display at the president's house to show that our first president indeed had slaves. That's not a secret. It's not in our history books, but it should be in history documented in schools, I'm saying. I don't think we learned that specifically, but it is documented if you'd like to find that information.
You learn it in schools, so you absolutely learn it in schools.
But that's something that I think people need to understand, like exhibits like that I saw with my own eyes.
They talk about it. They point out where they were buried.
Someone is sending the directive from the federal government. So if local officials are misinterpreting what the directive they're getting from federal, that's the confusing part. There should be laid out specific guidelines.
They're not misinterpreting it. They're wrongly interpreting it on purpose to make the administration look bad.
I don't think so. These people were genuinely concerned and telling me how much they're pushing back. And since I had direct dialogue with them, that's why I was so passionate about saying something in executive order, which is what we saw Trump do earlier this year, of like, we want to, as the 250th anniversary, we want to get closer to that and make the country have, stop spending so much time on the negative history. It's what I'm paraphrasing, but he also was talking about the Smithsonian, the African American History Museum, and saying about how basically it just harps on negativity when he was there a couple of years ago and said quite the opposite. So it's just a change of tone, and people are misinterpreting it, as long as you're saying, because maybe they're confused by the direction. And so if the direction is coming from the federal government, there needs to be clear guidelines of what you're talking about. Because all the monuments that I've been to, as I've been able to travel across this country sometimes to different states that he's referring to, have had stuff that provides information to children and families and international people coming here trying to understand our history. Right. So to me, that should be clear if you're going to institute something that's an executive order that's so serious, because history really is the housing that makes sure that we don't end up repeating it in the future. We can't take the foundation out.
The Tuskegee Airmen display thing is an example of what I'm talking about, in my opinion. Right? They took down that because they said, oh, we got a mandate to un-DEI everything, so we got to take this down. And Pete Hegseth said, absolutely not. Don't take that down. That is not consistent with the order to get rid of DEI whatsoever. And in fact said that he thought it was malicious compliance. So we're not, that one was wrongly taken down. We should not.
But this is always the excuse. Even the Interior Department and the Hill, amazing reporting from, our journalists at the Hill, they reached out to the Interior Department and they said, if this was wrongly taken down, we will take corrective steps. Everything can't be a knee-jerk reaction to an executive order. If there's something that you are deeply disturbed by as the president that wants to institute this widespread policy, which looks as to be an attack on anything of people of color or indigenous people or marginalized groups, if it is indeed not that, then clarify exactly what you're talking about. Because it's not like we have running rampant amount of sites across the country that are just showing the wrong history. So tell me why that needed to be an executive order, why it was this big emergency, and why we're reviewing these things anyway. Because I've been to that African American History Museum, and even his critiques of that, to me, besides from the poster online, we discussed that. They posted something online that talked about what was a white privilege, and and I said I don't agree with that. They took it down. They apologized. But in the actual museum, point me one thing that didn't make sense. That's a beautiful example of our nation's actual history. Right.
But just because we think that you got to be a certain age to read The Bluest Eye or Beloved or whatever. Some of those are graphic books. Not saying they're going to get taken out of the library, just like you got to be 13 before you read it. Doesn't mean we're sanitizing all African American literature, right?
And just because we're mocking Juneteenth and telling everybody to go back to work doesn't mean we're being condescending.
Well, I think everybody should go back to work, not specifically for Juneteenth. Just a little too many of these holidays.
Everything is such a coincidence with you. Everything is just such a coincidence. It's like, come on now. You give
President's
grace.
Day, gone, all the days. All the days got to go.
You want no holidays? You want to be here on Christmas?
I'm a heartless man. Heartless.
Wow. But he does celebrate Halloween. Tells you something about Robbie. Some of the biggest charges against Luigi Mangione have been dismissed. We'll talk about that after this.